fashion was so much easier back in the day, before direct to consumer. The only direct to consumer was if you actually had a brick and mortar store. That was your direct to consumer. But back then, everybody would sell to stores. So when I had my repping agency times two, which I had for 10 years, from 1989 to 1999, we represented fashion brands, and we were the liaison between the brand and the retail store. So we had all the relationships with the Nordstroms and the Saks and Barney's back in the day, and just all the trendy stores, department stores, boutiques. And basically a line would, you would create a line and you would give it to a showroom, essentially. I mean, you could do it on your own, but it was better to give it to a showroom because the showroom already had the relationships. So I know that there's definitely a movement back to wholesale, and it's interesting because I think a lot of brands that emerged, on the internet only over the last, 10 plus years really don't know the wholesale game. And it's a whole thing that, it's a B2B business. And you have to know how to deal with buyers and how to kind of conform to the way they want you to ship. And there's certain shipping rules and guidelines and this, that, and the other thing. And it's really, I mean, anybody who really doesn't know could be like a deer in the headlights. But back in the day, to my point that I was making earlier, though, back in the day, it was like, if you gave your line to a showroom, they would do the deals for you. They would get the buyers in, they would position your brand, they would get you into the right doors, if you were in a reputable showroom, like mine, like times two. But, and then you would then you would have to ship it. And, we worked on a commission basis. So when the goods were shipped, we got a commission. And in the old days, it started at 10%. Now it's up to almost 15% for, commission rate at this point. But back in the day, it was like 10%. And that we would get as reps. And, really, I mean, a line, somebody could do a line and just make a sample line, stick some labels in it, and stick it in a showroom and pray for the best. And that was really, there was minimal investment in that except to produce your sample line, which is really nominal. You're not producing any type of inventory, and you're really seeing if the buyers, that was kind of your validation, because then we would show it to the buyers and the buyers would give reaction. A lot of buyers didn't want to buy the first season. They wanted to see how a brand developed over time, maybe one season to the next. They don't want to buy. But then other brands, if they thought your stuff was cool, they buy it the first season. But, it was minimal investment. And the only time that you had to invest is when you actually had orders. So, it's a lot different now. Whereas what comes first, the cart or the horse? If you're going direct to consumer and you're not doing any type of wait list, people expect you to have the product. And if you're going to go buy a bunch of inventory and the stuff doesn't sell, that's why so many businesses fail. So it was easier, I think, for those reasons. But I think it's easier now in a way, because you could, get your product out there on social media and get it into the right hands, like influencers and, people that have an audience, and you could tap into other people's audiences. You can collab, and you could really, that's really the marketing. I mean, social media is the marketing of the product, so, but I think that the direct to consumer route, only solely direct to consumer, I feel like that has a shelf life to it right now. A lot of brands are going back to wholesale. A lot of brands are recognizing that by the time they pay for ads and, Facebook, performance marketing, the customer acquisition costs are very high, especially with iOS changes back in the day where they can't track customers anymore. So that's changed a lot. And, you used to be able to put $1 in the register and get $4 back. That's not happening. So, a lot of people are looking to, and there are some brands that have actually done the math and they figured that it's like on par. It's almost like the same price, whether they're selling wholesale or they're selling direct to consumer, because you think of all the customer acquisition costs and everything. Wholesale, obviously your selling price is lower than what you're retailing it for. But as I said, some brands have done the math and it's almost on par. And the thing about selling a store is that you sell them like a big order, like a bulk. It's not just like one-offs, I mean, there's pros and cons to both. I can get, it would be too long for me right now to get into it, but there's definitely pros and cons to both. But I think that, I think the bar was a lot easier when I started to really get started and see if you can get some traction going without a big investment. So that's my 2 cents for today.